And we're live. Anne.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely.
Great to be here.
Anne and Charlotte? Charlotte?
My name is Anne Charlotte, but you can call me Anne, Charlotte, Anne Charlotte, Anne Charles.
What do you prefer?
Anne Charles is okay.
Okay, Anne Charles. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I gotta say, I'm really excited. We're doing a luncheon today, restaurant down the street. It's I haven't had a chance to taste through your lineup, but what I have had what I have had the chance to taste is that CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE Blanc.
Oh yeah.
And for me, I'm a huge fan of Rhone. I'm a huge fan of CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE. Something that's always been hard for me to gravitate towards is CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE Blanc. There's along the way, I don't know what it is, but some of them coming into the States have been a little subpar. I got to try yours. I fell in love with it instantly. About a month ago, I made a big post about it. Everyone seemed to love it. We sold out as soon as I did, which was not the intention because we like having it around. But it's a beautiful wine, so I'm very happy to have you on today.
Thank you so much.
I was lucky enough to taste through all the wines.
Yeah,
and Lord have mercy.
I will taste them.
The best Rhones that I can recall forever. I mean,
wow.
I was blown away by all of them. I was just shocked.
I'm gonna cry.
And the one that you make, kind of made for your daughter. That's kind of interesting. A different take on CHATEAUNEUF. Why did you make? Tell us about that story.
So first, you have to know, the people who are going to listen this podcast have to know that La Fond-du-Loup, my domain, is a very unique domain. It's 45 acres, one single plot, while CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE is a very morcellated area with a little plot here, another there. So it's a single plot. We are located on the top of a hill, the highest point of CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE, which is not the Everest, of course, but it's 120 meters above the sea level. I'll let you do the conversion because we use metric system, but not you. And all the vines are planted on a sandy soil, and they all are north facing. So those characteristics always give to our wine freshness, delicacy, and elegance that it's not always findable in CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE. So usually the wine in CHATEAUNEUF-DU-PAPE are bigger, and with my type of soil, what we call terroir, I am not able to do big wines. So the idea was to always stay focused on this type of freshness and delicacy. You are talking about the cuvée I did on purpose for my daughter. So in fact the story came back like 20 plus years ago when I was pregnant with my first daughter. I have two sisters, and my father told me, you know what, we need some testosterone in this family because I feel a little bit lonely. And so I went to the X-ray, and then I discovered that I was expecting a daughter. So my husband and I were super happy, but then when I came to my parents' place and I told my father, you know what, it is going to be a daughter, but I have an idea. So this vintage, we decided to do this cuvée to celebrate les demoiselles, which in French means the young ladies of La Fond-du-Loup. So my two sisters, myself, the vines, and the arrival of the new baby. And for X and Y reason, we stopped doing this cuvée, but now my oldest daughter is 21. She's studying in Burgundy, a part of a tasting group, and the first time she came to a tasting group with some bottles of Rhone Valley wines, they all look at her with big eyes. You know the Tex Avery style of eyes. So I'd say, oh wow, definitely it's not Pinot Noir. It's a little bit heavy and big. So she came back home and asked my husband and myself, oh, Papa, Maman, can you do something for me, please? Of course, because we are the coolest parents in the planet, we say yes. So we decided to use only the young vines, 20-year-old vines, for this cuvée, which is a blend of Grenache and Syrah. And short vinification, that means that we leave the grapes for three weeks in a vat instead of 4 weeks. and there is no oak during the aging process, just to keep the freshness and to have this kind of crunchy wine, if I can say that. And my daughter is super happy. You know, in France, I always tell my kids, okay, you're allowed to drink a little bit, but it has to be good. So I wanted to provide good stuff for the kids.
Well, it's a beautiful wine because it is. It's like bright and just, you know, it just sings. I mean, that's the thing that I thought about it. It just really connected with me, and I felt like this is a Chateauneuf I could drink with so many different things.
Yes, and the idea also, especially in Florida where the weather is humid and warm, sometimes you want a great bottle of red, but with this weather you say, okay, let's go for a white wine instead of a rosé. With this wine you can drink Chateauneuf-du-Pape all year long. You just have to cool it a little bit in your refrigerator, and you serve it around, like I would say 58, 60s Fahrenheit, and it's perfect. All type of food, barbecue, pizza, simple food, and more elaborate food as well, but it goes very well with everything. And with fish as well.
And in Florida.
And in Florida,
we
of
get
course,
a lot of that.
like, you know, cod with a tiny touch of chorizo on the top of it, or you can do some salmon if you have, or crab cakes. That's perfect with crab cakes, and dishes like that.
Well, you're saying that there was, you were moving kind of fast there, but from what I gathered, there's no oak in the process, right? Is that what you were saying?
In this cuvée, no oak at all.
Right, so it's showing a lot brighter, a little more acidity to it, it's a little fresher, it's perfect for things like that.
Yes.
Florida. What's the ABV on that?
It's 14.5.
Perfect.
So, which is, you know, we are in Chateauneuf-du-Pape.
Of course,
The
yeah.
ABV is quite higher.
It pushes, yeah.
But where with our location, it's really 14.5. So it's no higher than that. A little less alcohol than sometimes in Chateauneuf-du-Pape.
Well, you have a little higher
and
elevation.
Yeah, and you were mentioning the freshness and the acidity. You'll see through all the tasting today, you'll see all the wines have this touch of acidity, which refresh everything.
So you have a nice ageable wine. They
Yes.
push out. What do you recommend
So,
the best drinking age for them?
You know, I like to enjoy life. So people will kill me usually when I say that. But I'm a girl. When I buy a pair of shoes, I don't want to put it in my closet for 10 years. I like to wear them now. So the wine are enjoyable right now. I cannot give any advice because it's up to people. Some people like old wine, some people like them very young. But I would say that you can age them for 25 years, 30 years without any problem. And I think that 2 years is a good amount of time to wait. So right now we are pouring the 20 vintage, so it's ready to drink.
It's so wild for me to see 20 vintage on a bottle right now.
Yeah, it
is.
is
So crazy.
It is so crazy. You're right. But
so you did say something a little interesting. You said that you're using the younger vines on these, and you throw out 20 years. So what's the average age of your vines?
65-year-old.
Wow.
Plus, I got a single plot of 100-year-old vines.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? So people, you know, I think people get confused with. I mean, a lot of people know what, you know, Chateauneuf and Côte d'Aron varietals are, but I think they get a little confused with what the Blanc version of the grape varietals that you're using in your wines.
Okay, so in Chateauneuf-du-Pape, we are allowed to use 13 different grape varieties, 7 for the red and 6 for the white. I use 4 out of the 6 for the white. I use Grenache Blanc, Roussanne, Clairette, and Bourboulinque. And don't ask me the 2 others because I always forget them. So I advise you should ask Google.
Yeah, it's Google. And that's in both the Chateauneuf and the Côte d'Aron.
So no, in Côte d'Aron you can use Marsanne and Viognier as well, but not in Chateauneuf.
Oh, you can't use Viognier in
no,
Chateauneuf.
No, no
Oh.
Viognier, no Marsanne.
I didn't know
I am
that.
sorry, folks, if I ever told you there was Viognier in a Chateauneuf.
No, that's
because
not
I
allowed.
was
Not
wrong.
And you know, white Chateauneuf-du-Pape represents less than 5% of the total production of Châteauneuf-du-Pape. So we are famous for our reds. 95% is red, only 5% is white. And it comes back to the Catholic popes who were established in Avignon and then in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, because the wine that they are using for the Catholic Mass is white wine. Otherwise they can,
it'll come off of their robes.
Yes, the white robes could be like stained with wine. So they use white wine. So all of the winemaker, we always have a little bit of white because of that. And also because people can use it in the red as well. We can blend all the 13 varieties and we can add some white varieties into the red varieties. Of course, it's during the harvest process. So we don't blend the juice, but we co-ferment. We can co-ferment white and red together.
So, just pause there for a second. Obviously, we know we're in the wine industry, but for those of us who are just tuning in or listening from the restaurant side of the world, why would you co-ferment red to white?
To add, so the people who do that, it's to add a little bit of freshness. So most of the people who are located on the south face of the appellation, growing on a very rocky soil where the soil is warm and where the grapes are very concentrated. Adding a little bit of white grapes inside will bring some freshness. Aromatics and some flowers aromas as well. So it's a good way to do that.
I know that they definitely add it for color reasons as well.
And for color reasons as well.
I don't understand that as much.
How does that work?
I know that it does, but I don't know how it works.
I don't do that, so I'm not sure that my answer will be super great.
Can we call a friend?
But I think it's sometimes the color can be a little bit too big. So if you put some white grape inside, it will change the color a little bit, so lighter the color, and bring a type of, especially if you use like Roussanne or Claret, if you look at the skin, it's a bright yellow, so it will bring some, almost some sparkles into the wine, if you know what I mean.
Okay. All right, that makes a little more sense. I've understood that Viognier gets co-fermented with Syrah a lot of times to add color to the wine. And what are you talking about? Why are you adding a white?
It's lighting everything. It's like putting brighter, some glitters and sparkles into the wine.
Shining it up, making it pretty.
And yes. You make 3 Châteauneufs, right? 3?
So I make
imported.
So
I should say.
you have 3 of them. I have the Cuvée Les Demoiselles. Then I have my traditional blend, which reflects exactly what is planted on my vineyard. So 4 grapes: Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and Cinsault. Actually, I should say Grenache, Mourvèdre, because there's 20% of Mourvèdre and 15% of Syrah in my wines, plus 5% of Cinsault, and the rest is Grenache, so 60% is Grenache. And then I have this fantastic plot of vines that is called Le Puy Roland. So Le Puy in Old French means the little mountain, and Roland is the name of the person who planted the vines 100 years ago, and it's 100% Grenache, 100-year-old vines.
Wow, 100-year-old vines.
Yes, yes. Can you believe that they've been harvested for 100 times now?
Well, I think you said your family has been making wine for 100 years. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. So my great-grandfather bought the winery roughly 100 years ago. But we bought this plot of vines a little bit later, so he wasn't involved in the planting on those vines.
Wow. So I would imagine 100-year-old Grenache, you're probably seeing a lot smaller production off of those.
Lots smaller production. Big trees. Sure. I mean, the vines are huge, taller than I am. And I'm not very tall, so that's not difficult. But anyway, a lot smaller production. Yes. So in average, so this is going to be a little bit complicated because I will use my metric system one more time. But we are allowed to produce 35 hectoliters per hectare. To give you a comparison, Champagne is allowed to produce 90 hectoliters per hectare. So we are allowed to produce 3 times less than they are allowed to produce.
Is that the AOC law?
It's the AOC law. And so with these vines of Puy Roland, when I produce 18, that's a miracle. So we are very happy because they are old ladies. So we
are they trellis? Are they bush vine? Or are they
bush vines?
Bush vines.
It's by the law we have to bush vine our Grenache in Châteauneuf. The only variety that we can trail is Syrah.
Is Syrah.
Because they need a lot of leaves to ripe the grapes, and this is the only variety we can train. Otherwise, everything else is bush trained.
And as far as this Grenache, being 100 years old, I mean, is there a life expectancy for Grenache grapes in Châteauneuf?
No.
No.
I mean, they die when they die.
When they die.
And,
like us.
Yes, yes. We just take care of them very nicely. But some are very vigorous, you know. You see that they want to stay longer.
They the one thing I wanted to ask you too was you said your daughter is working in Burgundy.
Yeah, she's studying
in Burgundy. And is she interested in wine?
We'll see. She's going to spend 6 months in New Orleans for an internship at the Commander's Palace because she wants to become a wine buyer. So we'll see what happens. You know, she's young. I'm young too.
I'm young too.
Yeah, I don't want to get retired now, so I have another good 20 years to work.
Yeah, retirement doesn't sound fun. Vacation sounds fun. Retirement.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
Yes. You're all right about that.
Oh, Commanders will be a hell of a place to cut her teeth. That's a tough spot.
Yeah, that's a tough spot.
It was even tougher when Ella was around, right? But so those Grenache, what are they showing like? I haven't tried that wine. What is the 100-year-old Grenache putting off?
A dimension in the wine which is exceptional. It's like you have what you expect from a Grenache on a lighter style because of our terroir. So it's super aromatic, dark fruit on the vintage 2019 that we are going to taste today. A lot of spices, but a tiny touch, of black pepper, white pepper, and there's a dimension in the mouth which is just incredible. The delicacy as well is perfect.
So we've had a lot of really great vintages recently in Châteauneuf. I mean, what's the last bad vintage you've had? I mean, 16 was unbelievable.
So this will be my answer. Do you have kids, or maybe you're too young to have kids?
I have a kid.
You have a kid? 1, 2?
She's 4.5.
4.5. Are you one day going to see her and say, you were a bad vintage?
No, but you have to admit there
same
are
answer every time.
So there, I won't say better or or not good. I would say more difficult or less difficult.
Sure, that's fair.
It's being a winemaker is like being a parent. We expect a new kid every year. So our goal is to wait for the arrival of the new kid. So to have the best grapes as possible. So our job for 365 days a year is to be able to have those great grapes. So we know how to do our job, we know which decisions we have to take to have the best grapes as possible. When I say that there are some more difficult vintage, that is true. Sometimes you have rain when it's not expected, sometimes you have a hailstorm or frost, but we know how to react to that. And when we do the wine, we only use the good grapes, the very good grapes. So it reflects the vintage, of course, but it's never, I would say, an issue. And sometimes when the people, I'm thinking about 2013 or 2008, where the journalists say, oh, it's not a good vintage in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. Those are among my favorite ones. Yeah. Because usually they are more drinkable, more approachable, and you know that as a parent, sometimes you feel like your kid is a pain in the ass, excuse my French, but then you try to educate them and give them their chance, and at the end they become fantastic human beings. And this is exactly what I want to do with the wine, to give every vintage its chance to be a fantastic wine being, not a human being, but a wine being. I don't know if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense.
For sure.
And I've been very vocal, at least on here and through my career, about our own more difficult vintages. 2011 was shit in California across the board, and I bought every 2011 for the restaurant that I could, and I just stored them because they're screaming now. Beautiful years. I guess what I'm getting at is you haven't had too many difficult vintages over the last several.
So we had 2 difficult vintages because of the quantity of the crop. So it was 17 and 18. I lost 50% in 17 and 50% in 18. In 17 we had a hailstorm on June the 23rd, which like damaged the half of the crop. So that was a nightmare. But usually we know that it can happen. We are dealing with nature every year, so we know exactly what that can happen. So we are ready for that. But then the next vintage, we had a problem with a lot of rain during the springtime, and also coulure. So coulure is the fact that the flower drop off. So if there's no flower, there's no fruit. So we lost also half of a crop in 2018. So believe me, economically wise, that was tough.
Yeah, I like that you say difficult vintages and not bad vintages, right? Just a little bit more work, right? A little bit more.
Yeah, we know it's like having a kid. If they don't behave the way you want them to behave, you just have maybe change your way of acting with them and just tell that you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Or we know how to deal with those problems with experience, and we use our brain, which sometimes is very useful, but we take the good decision at the right time, and then we prepare the harvest. In fact, our job as a winemaker, so as a vine grower, is to prepare the harvest. Once the grapes are great for the harvest, then I would say it's the easiest part.
I never thought about putting my old wines in a decanter, and that's time out. You go in the decanter, that's your time out. Go sit in the decanter.
So you lost 50%. I think you said to hail. Is that right?
Yes.
Half the harvest.
Hail.
Do you use hail nets?
No, because it was the first time we had hail in LOUP.
Huh.
It was the first ever time in all recorded.
All 4 generations.
Yeah.
Wow.
We are not on the hail corridor,
Oh.
so it was the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said, if I remember correctly, you said you're the highest elevation in. So
we have a lot of wind. So we are in the Rhône Valley, so there's the Mistral, it's our wind, which is blowing from, let's say, Lyon to Marseille, from the north to the south. And we in LOUP are on the top of the hill, so there's nothing which protects us. So we have constantly some wind, which dry everything. And usually the frost is due by the morning dew or stuff like that. So we don't have that. And the hail, usually the clouds, the hail clouds are pushed
away,
by the wind. But
so you're not super high, but is there some sort of a rain shadow effect? Is that what happens there? As it shoves up, I would imagine that you're getting.
So we are not super high. So, but we have wind. We have wind. We don't have more rain than anybody else, but sometimes a little less. But we have wind all the time.
Which
Almost
keeps
everything.
everything nice and dry, I would think.
Yeah, this is why
too.
it's I won't say it's easy, but we farm everything organically. There's no pesticide, no herbicide, nothing. And with this Mistral effect, it helps us a lot to conduct the vines like that. Yes.
I love that. No pesticides, no herbicides. People ask those questions all the time to us, and people people don't put it on the bottle all the time because that's costly, right? I mean, to be certified organic and things like that. But it
is.
is.
You certified or no?
So in the process to be certified, but we never use anything since the 40 past years. But now I realize that people are asking to have that on the label.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I was about to say something, but I need to change my sentence. So it doesn't matter to me if it's written or not, as long as I know what the winemaker or the producer is doing. I drink my wine every day. I don't want to poison myself with bad stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Right. That's it's been a hot topic, at least on our podcast, a lot lately. And in store, people are asking for it, and it seems to be, I don't know if it's a trendy thing. I hesitate to call it a trendy thing, but people really like seeing that organic thing. And as we interview winemakers from all around the world, but it seems a lot of the European winemakers. What are you talking about? Why?
We've never done that.
Yeah, what are you talking about? 40 years you've been doing it this way, and you've never thought about doing it.
Because it was expensive.
Right.
I mean, it is expensive to buy those products.
Yes.
So when when you can't, you don't do that. And then when you see that the nature is alive, what is important to us is to have a very alive environment. So to encourage the biodiversity. So we have worms underground. We have a lot of insects, we have our own bees, we do honey. So everything to help the biodiversity and to help the environment to be alive. Look, if you have a flower in your garden, if everything is dry and there's this poor flower, she feels lonely and she won't stay for a long time. If you have nice grass, a lot of flowers, alive, a lot of insects, next year you will have more flowers and it will be more alive. So to have an alive environment is vital for the vines.
Yeah, and farming in general.
And farming in general.
We've talked about that a lot. It seems like we've definitely dove into a lot of biodynamic farming and regenerative farming. We've sought some of these people out who are really big players in it, and we try to promote that a little bit. Since we learned about it, we went in and had some long in the weeds conversations with regenerative farmers, and I think it's very important. And I've gotten in a little trouble for saying this, but I almost feel like it's kind of a lazy American thing in a lot of ways when we used the pesticides. A lot of times you don't even need to use the pesticides. They are just every 8 days on a calendar. This is when we do it. This is when we do it. This is when we do it. And so a lot of these people, like Chris Benzinger and the folks over the Haas family, they take a real big stance against this. This is terrible what you're doing. You're ruining the ground. You're ruining everything around it. And I think it's important to kind of bring life back to the vineyards, and you get a lot happier vines. Those guys are producing phenomenal wines, and there is a reason why a lot of these European winemakers don't certify. They've been doing it forever, and this is kind of our thing that we've. Does it say organic on the bottle?
Yeah, it does. But now we know. Now that we know, that's something too that we can easily lead people into those things. Like when they ask that question, well, it doesn't say, but here's a family that hasn't done it for 40 years, and the wines are delicious. So it's very easy to promote your wines just based on the wine, not on the farming practices.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna have lunch here in about 30 minutes, so
I'm excited to try the wines.
We're gonna go have to pour some wine.
Right.
Let's do that. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
CHATEAU, right?
CHATEAU.
Or is it chateau? Is it domain?
No, it's Château de la Fond du Loup, which means we have a beautiful chateau, and La Fond du Loup means the fountain of the wolf. Because we have a beautiful fountain. It's a natural spring water fountain, and the legends say that all the wolves surrounding the property used to come and drink at this fountain. This is why it has been named after the wolf.
That's pretty neat. I love that.
Yeah. I was never afraid about wolf when I was a young kid. Not anymore, of course. But that was fun, yes. And it's a beautiful place.
Well, we can't wait to have lunch together, and we appreciate your time, and thank you for doing this.
Merci.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.